college football is a big go-to for us, right? And for you and how we all built this together. Dallas, SMU. If the Big 12 would have continued to expand, despite the outside of the incoming four of UCF, Houston, Cincinnati, and Brigham Young, had they continued to look and expand, SMU would have been on the radar. And they not would have been, they would have been on they were on the radar. Now they're on the Pac-12 radar.
Yeah, and they should be. I mean, if you're going to expand, like, there are not golden expansion candidates for the Pac-12 and Big 12. Like, the last two golden expansion candidates left. And if any of you on the chat room say, what about Notre Dame? I will send a box of nails to your house. I don't know what that means. But it's the dumbest thing I've ever heard when people say Notre Dame. It's not going to happen. It's not going to happen. Not ever going to happen. So, since Notre Dame's not ever going to happen, then you need to look at practically what you can do. And the Pac-12, you have to decide who you're going to be. Who are you going to be? This is probably what's slowed down their TV negotiations a little bit because, all of the schools are kind of at different points in their trajectory. Oregon State and Washington State are, state schools in kind of remote areas, so they maybe don't have the same kind of draw that their in-state counterparts, Washington and Oregon, do, and that have so much juice nationally, with Oregon being the home of Nike and Washington being there in Seattle. The four corner schools kind of have something like, if they did something together, they have that kind of little area together, and then you have Stanford and Cal, who are schools with high academia, kind of things, and I don't know if they really know who they want to be, especially Stanford, with things changing the way that NIL and the transfer portal have affected college football. Stanford maybe has to live in a bit of a different world because they can't just, it's not like transferring from Boston College and Boston College is a good school, but from Florida to Georgia. It's not the same. I'm not trying to knock those schools, but nobody's Stanford. Stanford is Stanford. They are unique in what they do. So adding an SMU, very good academic school, very beautiful campus, really nice facilities, a lot of big alumni money involved in that, in a major market, in Texas, which the Pac-12 seemed to have this idea of as far east as we'll go as this point, but now they're going to have to. If the Big Ten's going to come west, then they've got to go east. If the Pac, I think they do. I mean, I think they do. They don't have to add 6 teams. I don't think they need to go crazy and add 6 teams. I think they need to expand, though.
Okay, who would be attached to SMU out of the Pac-12? The closest team would be what, Colorado?
Yeah, probably, yeah.
So would they need more than just SMU?
I think they need more than SMU. I think, they've had, discussions about San Diego State, Gonzaga. I mean, Gonzaga's been in their discussion.
I'm talking about a team like some would eventually might be attached to Brigham Young out west.
Yeah.
You said, there's teams out there. Like I know San Diego State, and I'd love it for Sandy. I don't care whether or not it's good for the Pac-12 or the Big Ten or Big 12. I'd love to see San Diego State get that shot. I'll let SMU get that shot, and then I know the immediate thing about SMU. They don't draw anybody. Well, Houston's had that problem. Hell, TCU's had that problem, and at times Baylor's had that problem. So have other schools in the Big 12.
If the Pac-12 has an issue with that, then Stanford, Cal, UCLA.
Well, that's what I'm saying.
Everybody has their periods of not drawing people.
And it's not about
going.
Attendance. It's about can they develop? Will they help create more TV dollars?
Yeah, I mean UNLV's in those, kind of discussions, Boise State, so that's who they have to look at because, the Pac-12 is not going to add Memphis. Memphis would be another one that fits that, especially going east, but Memphis doesn't fit anything about the Pac-12 and their identity as an entire league.
Daniel Acton, Tulsa, no.
No. See, the Memphis into
North Texas.
No.
Tulane. See,
Tulane maybe, but I don't think Tulane look, Willie Fritz even told us Tulane's not really ready for that. Yeah. Memphis is also not ready for it, but they're taking steps because they'd like to be. But Tulane, to make that step, UCF and Houston gave you the playbook. Cincinnati was a Power 5, and then they weren't. or a power conference where the Big East went away, and then they weren't. So they were already kind of ready for it. BYU was its own situation. BYU is like Notre Dame. They are the school that they're the Mormon school, so they're going to have their own kind of captive audience. It's a very large religion and group of people. But if you want to take the step up, the map out there is TCU as well, because TCU improved Amon Carty before they got in the Big 12. It is Houston. Houston improved their stadium, built a new stadium.
They did a lot of things.
Built a new stadium.
Of the university too. Yeah.
Yeah, and then the university gets bigger. The university does those things, and they've made those commitments, to make those big moves. SMU's done that. San Diego State has done that. But if you start throwing in like Tulsa and Memphis, they haven't. They're not there yet. Plus, the academic profile is huge for the Pac-12. They're losing USC, which is an absolutely fantastic academic institution, and UCLA, which is an absolutely fantastic academic institution. And I'm not knocking Tulsa and Memphis. If you went to Tulsa and Memphis, great, they're good schools, but they run in a different circle than do USC and UCLA. So
the Pac-12 expansion is going to be more than what somebody might bring to the table when it comes to athletics.
Yes,
and that doesn't mean what the Big 12 added or anyone else added is not about the other parts of the university. It is, and we've seen with the president of Houston and what they've done to kind of turn that perception around a little bit. And Cindy Machado, who's on the chat room quite a bit, is always asking about expansion. She said, "I don't agree. I don't agree with going with less than 6 teams. I don't know if they can get to 1 or 2.
I think they got to start at 2, because if you're going to be at 10 once the Southern California schools leave. Everybody else is going to be at 12 or more in the Power 5. So I think you need to at least match that. The Big 12 went with 10 for a very long time, and it was to their detriment. It was absolutely to their detriment. And the other thing I think that George Kliavkoff needs to know is that the Big 12 did this, where they toyed around like a cat toy and said oh, we're definitely considering expansion. We're at 10 teams. We need to be, at 12 or 14 or 16. That needs to be our goal. And they vetted all these schools, and they had all these, people send in packages, and it was a dog and pony show created by David Boren. That's what it was. It was a complete dog and pony show. They didn't do anything with it. And then
they did it to make it look like they were doing or looking at it, and it was just really nothing.
Yeah, it was nothing. It was just, and it was pay no attention to the man behind the curtain kind of a thing, and it was nothing. If George Kliavkoff is going to start going to campuses now, look, if he goes to SMU and Boise State and UNLV and all that, doesn't mean he has to add, every place he goes he has to add. But if he's going to be serious about this, if they're going to start doing the process, they have to follow through with it, because otherwise it's going to make them look really silly if they don't, and you are going to get to the point, because the Pac-12 and Big 12, as much as the Twitter worlds and the fan bases like to snipe at each other, they're in the same neighborhood. They're the same things are happening to both of them almost exactly the same way. And if you don't follow the advice of the Big 12 that went before you, then you are foolish, because you have to, and it took the Big 12, Texas and OU leaving, for them to really expand, because again, like I said, dog and pony show by David Boren. If you guys don't know who David Boren is, at the time he was the president of Oklahoma. So they were the ones who were stopping expansion. They left, the Big 12 added 4 teams, got back to 12, and now the future is much brighter, the TV deal went up, and all those things.
All right, is Kliavkoff doing this because they're looking for expansion, or is he doing it because they need more before they actually sign or commit to something, or someone commits to them when it comes to television?
Yeah, I mean, that's what I'm worried about. I think you have to make it worth the while. And look, if I'm a TV partner and I tell them, hey, why don't you go out and look, and let's set this up, because we would really like it more if you guys were expanding. That seems to be where the juice comes from, as far as promotion of a league right now. And if he just goes and does it and goes, well, we don't like any of these schools, well, then, you're the Pac-10, and that's what you're going to be for a very long time, until your bigger schools decide that there's a better offer out there and they take it. And it could be a decade from now. It could be 20 years from now. But this is how it works.
All right, so we're live in Phoenix, Super Bowl 57, Sunday evening.